quick message real quick from my wife to Paul.
Oh, God.
It's Raleigh, not Phil, dumbass. Thank you.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Rhythm Section of Memphis Music Podcast, produced by SRP Studios Podcasting, SRP Studios, LLC.com.
Catch new episodes every Tuesday morning on Apple and Spotify, 6 p.m. Central on YouTube and Facebook, and 7:30 p.m. on radio-memphis.com.
And please follow us at therhythmsectionpod.com for all channel links and episodes.
Yeah, I had no idea about that intro. That was perfect.
Well. Welcome to episode 99, everyone.
Yeah.
My name is Derrick. This is my buddy Jeff. You know, Jeff.
Howdy.
Always coming in with the energy.
Woo! Yeah.
Boy, oh boy, we have a great interview for you today. Bobby Ireland joined us. You know him as the drummer for Hairspray Nation, but boy,
you may not recognize him without the wig.
But woo, we just literally filmed this interview before we started this intro. It's a long one. That's why when you looked at the time for this episode, it's a bit lengthy, but it's worth it. I promise. But we'll get to more. We'll get to more on Bobby after the ad break, and then next week, everyone, our episode 100 celebration at Roosters. It's edited, so I witnessed it all again, and it went well. You know, the cameras, the angles are what they are.
Right.
You know, it's obviously not an in-studio thing, but it sounded good. And that sound that we just played for you at the beginning is a moment in the evening. So, but stay tuned for that next week. All right, we want to talk the Boneyard.
Yes.
You can see we're wearing their shirts. Mm-hmm. We went out to see a show at Neil's this past Friday, and it was great. You know, I'd seen them a couple times at like benefits, but I'd never gone to finally got to go to see them in a proper show at, you know, where they play a full night.
How late did you stay after we left?
Not long after.
Okay, because of course I texted Chris Hinkle the next day, and he was like, "Man, I wish you guys could have stayed for another set because it was so great." And I'm like, man, I'm just such a, you know, I'm not like Kiss. I can't rock and roll all night. Yeah,
we left early too. We left after the set break, basically just before they were getting to go up for set number 2. It was, you know, it is what it is. You know, we got to hear a good hour's worth of them kicking major ass.
Yeah, the lead singer, Corey, also known as Nick
Riggs, Corey Riggs, yeah.
Man, the guy just brings the house down. He's amazing. The whole band is amazing. Alan Bone doing such a great job with harmonies and sometimes lead vocal. But they're just fantastic.
But yeah, Corey, man, sings like an angel.
Yeah, he does.
Just, it's one thing to be able to have a range and hit those certain notes, but his tone, the tone of his voice is remarkable.
He was made for that era of music.
Yes, for sure.
Without question.
Troy Fleming on bass. Absolutely. I mean, I love his playing. He's just an old school rocker, man. And the combination of him and Alan Bone playing that style of music is a force to be reckoned with. They are an excellent rhythm section.
And then you got Chris Hinkle and John Guttery playing guitar, both fantastic players. They feed off of each other very well.
For sure.
Just do a fantastic job. And we want to get all those guys in here for interviews at some point. I'll try to see if I can work on that for next season.
Alan Bone, interview number 3 published many moons ago. We had Chris Hinkle this season. Yeah. But yeah, there's 3 other guys that absolutely need to be in here.
Absolutely.
For sure. So it was a good time. It was a little hot in there as usual. it was a sweaty mess in
mildly.
there.
I think I said on Facebook that Neil must also have stock in Gold Bond powder. It keeps it hot enough in there that you need a little Gold Bond.
But hey, the place was packed.
Yes.
Sounded great. So go check them out. The Boneyard Memphis, as they are listed on Facebook. The Boneyard Memphis. Go follow their page. They play often. You don't want to miss the show. You won't regret it. I promise that. Alrighty. All right, Jeff.
Yep.
Kick it off for us.
Area 51 is one of the premier bands in Memphis and North Mississippi, bringing you songs from classic artists such as Starship, Van Halen, Peter Gabriel, and the Cars. Keep shining with Josh Shining and the guys in Area 51.
No, this is the last ad for the season. You got to bring it.
Okay.
Just the Keep Shining part.
Keep shining with Josh Shining.
Keep shining with Josh Shining. So upcoming shows and still.
We must mention Carlos Spicy Wiener.
I was just getting there. Yeah. Filling in for Lance still is the one Carlos Spicy Wiener, also known as Keith Blanchard.
Yeah.
Just saw Area 51 at the Collierville Square show this last week. And it was awesome. It was a great show, and he's doing it. He's kicking ass for them as well. Now, future dates you can check out is Saturday, June 28th. They're going to be at Hadley's, and July 5th and 6th at Gold Strike Casino. Follow on Facebook at Area 51 Memphis. Now, do you need some custom images, logos, shirts, magnets, and stickers that explode? Just like these Boneyard shirts done by one Steve Owens. Well, he delivers top-notch DTF and sublimation designs perfect for bands, businesses, and of course, podcasts. Images for You brings your brand and band and podcast to life. I just read yours again, didn't I?
That's okay.
You close it out.
Call Steve today at 901-870-6846 and let your image speak loud and clear. Images creations for you at yahoo.com.
DeSoto Local is a digital advertising network throughout DeSoto County. They have moved the outdoor billboard concept indoors to high traffic areas, connecting local businesses to their customers.
Their indoor billboards are in popular places all over town. These screens display full motion ads about the business hosting the screen, ads for local businesses in the area, and irrelevant local content.
Advertise your business with DeSoto Local. Contact Brandy Faulkner today at 901-831-3212 and visit DeSotoLocal.biz for more information. Now, you also want eye-catching branded mugs and tumblers, correct? Well, Katrina Owens brings your vision to life with high-quality vinyl and sublimation designs, all handcrafted with, of course, love and care.
Whether it's for a birthday, a business, or just because, Creations for You has you covered.
Call Katrina today at 901-870-1854 and let her create something just for you.
Magical.
Yes. Yeah. Look at us white boys headbanging.
No, it's head bobbing.
Head bobbing. All right. Are you looking for the best live music in Memphis? Well, you should be. And you need to go check out the Musicians Booking Agency on Facebook because they connect top bands with the city's hottest venues. Whether you're booking talent or looking for gigs, they've got you covered.
Follow on Facebook at the Musicians Booking Agency for updates on upcoming shows and new artists.
Contact Steve Owens at 901-870-6846. Kick them off, Jeff.
Yeah, shows for this week. Wednesday, June 25th, Shotgun Billies are at Hadley's, and Ripken is at the 1884 Lounge.
Friday, June 27th, Midnight Train at Sidecar South Haven. Carlos Echoes at the Shake Rag, The Pinch at Hadley's, and The Boneyard once again at Roosters.
Saturday, June 28th, Carlos Echoes, not to be confused with Carlos Spicy Wiener. They are at Lucky Dog. Lori Willis Duo is at Club 152, and Sleep Theory, they are at Minglewood, followed by the After Party in 1884 Lounge with Line So Thin.
All right, Sunday, June 29th, Memphis Yahoos at Hadley's, and another Sunday Originals at Roosters Blues House on Highland, 6 to 9 p.m. We got Sucker Punch, Triflin' Breed, and Black 59 with our good friend Sean Few. $5 cash at the door. Again, that's Sunday, June 29th.
Yeah, looking ahead to Saturday, July the 5th. 4th of July blowout at Minglewood in the 1884 Lounge with Roxy Blue, EMN, and Fever Tree. Spend the 4th with your family celebrating and watching the fireworks. Then spend the 5th with your other family, the Memphis music family, listening to great music and enjoying an explosive fireworks display only at 1884 Lounge. Get your tickets for the 4th of July blowout at 1884 Lounge, July 5th. Tickets are available at Ticketmaster.com.
Thank you to everyone for all your support. We cannot do it without you. That was a note from Steve.
Yes.
All right.
And prepare for the big 100th episode.
Next week, baby.
Of the Rhythm Section podcast.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we got Bobby Ireland. Boy, whew, man. Some fun stories there. That man has been blessed to just be surrounded in the music industry. And it all starts with his father. Right. Which I was not aware of how ingrained and connected his dad was throughout the history.
Right. You're going to learn great things like Gene Simmons asking to see Bobby's wife's boobs. And and the fact that he almost died with Mark Slaughter. There's all kinds of great stuff.
Yeah, there might be a tornado involved. And but yeah, so we talk about his dad a lot, the front end, because his dad helped run Ardent. Yeah. And it was an engineer that helped build a lot of their stuff when they bridged to the new location where they are now. Yeah. But his dad was a huge part in that transformation and the move there and the building. And his father was best friends with Jim Dickinson. Yep. Right. So tons of stories of Bobby being just a child around all these different people. There's a funny story about his 8th grade class having a field trip to Ardent while Black Oak, Arkansas was recording, and Jim Dandy coming out half shirtless, kids hearing swearing and all kinds of rude language, fun stuff there. But yeah, I mean, it's just iconic band after iconic band that Bobby got to meet as a child. And then that bridges into, he tells his story about how he first started playing. And, you know, he's one of the first guys he started jamming with as a child was Todd Poole. Yeah. You know, they're all neighbors. And we talk about how these kids get together and just start playing. And his original band, which was called Ireland, and he makes it clear that he didn't push for that.
It wasn't his idea.
It wasn't, you know, and how they came close to a record deal. Yeah. And funny story to go backwards, you know, his very first band, they were called Zach Curlin, which is a street in Memphis. First band, teenager band, and good stories behind that as far as how his dad helped support him and how the audition went and everything. And then, boy, you know, you'll hear it in the stories and in the interview and everything, but he hits a part in his life where he's like, I'm done with this shit. I'm done with this. He cuts all his hair off.
We've all done that.
Starts a career with Apple.
Yep.
And then that career brings him right back into the business because it's when Pro Tools and, you know, just computers as we know them now are just really starting to infiltrate and become a part of everyday life and the music industry. Right. So it just instantly pulls him back in, and through that, he ends up meeting tons of different musicians and working for him. And, you know, he's sitting next to Paul Stanley. Right. You'll hear the story how this happens, but yeah, he's hanging out with Paul Stanley, fixing his laptop for him, stuff like that. And then, you know, big connection with Mark Slaughter. Yep. And that's where the tornado comes in. Yep. So
and Slaughter, I loved Slaughter back in the day. They were one of my favorite bands of that era.
And then we wrapped the interview up with talking about his kids. And well, we talk about Nick at the very beginning because of Hairspray Nation. The end, that's when we start talking about Matt Ireland, right? His son, who played bass for Under the Radar. Yeah. Big, you know, story there about these kids opening up for an insane amount of acts, which is like act number 3 for Bobby. Right. Now, because of Matt and his band opening up for bands like Kansas and 38 Special and Night Ranger. Yeah. Crazy stuff there. Here he is again, just rubbing shoulders with all these artists. But he goes into detail on how that band started. And Under the Radar had massive success as a preteen band. Yeah. I mean, they're 12 years old playing in front of Kansas
and crushing
stuff like this. It's pretty remarkable. So that's why it was a lengthy one, but it's worth a listen, I promise. It was a good interview, and we thank Bobby for joining us. Big Note Music Lessons offers one-on-one group lessons for guitar, bass, keys, drums, and voice. Try a free lesson with no obligation. Visit bignotemusiclessons.com and complete that submission form.
Start your radio Memphis day with In the Morning with Rick and Monica from 9:30 to 2 p.m. Central for a wild ride of fun segments like News from the Stupid, That Guy, This Guy, Crime Time, and more. Radio-memphis.com.
And thanks to everyone that have donated to us this season. We so much appreciate you. You can tip our bucket through Venmo and Cash App. Links are in the description, or you can search the Rhythm Section Pod on either app.
Follow us at therhythmsectionpod.com. You will see our entire catalog of episodes and links to our YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Facebook, and Instagram channels.
Yes.
And
look,
that's it, man.
Look, this is our last traditional intro for the season. Next week, you get episode 100 at Roosters. It's just the show. We're not going to have an intro like this before that one. And then following Tuesday from there on July 8th, me and Jeff are just going to do a quick, probably 20-minute capper, if you will. Thanking our guests, thanking our sponsors, just talking about how the season went. And then we're going to go away for a little while. But thank you for hanging out with us all season. We do appreciate it.
Yep.
Plenty more content ahead. All right. But again, thank you for watching, listening, sharing, commenting, liking, donating, all of the above. We love all of you. And we had a great time at Roosters too. So look forward to next week. But this week, right now, please enjoy our interview with the great Bobby Ireland. All right, everyone. We're so happy to introduce you to the great Bobby Ireland in the house. This has been a long time coming. We finally got you in here.
Long time.
Yeah, good to have you.
Yes.
You got a lot to live up to, because I've had a ton of people say, man, he's got some great stories. So
Yes.
you better bring it.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we were trying to do a little pre-planning for this interview, we kept saying, no, we don't need the whole story right yet. The mics aren't on yet. We need to capture this stuff. Don't leave it in the hallway.
Yep.
Right.
But first,
Right.
you can see me and Jeff are wearing some special shirts today.
Yes, they are.
Mr. Wiggles official fan club.
Right.
If you know, you know. If you don't, then go see 901 Rocks and watch the keyboard player.
Right.
One Michael Green.
Yes.
All right.
We love you, Michael.
Yeah.
This is all in good fun. It's hilarious. And great shirts. And thank you. And thanks to so many of the 901 Rock, the whole 901 Rocks crew for you're always coming out to our shows, and I see you guys all the time, and we appreciate it. So,
All right. Bobby, how are you, sir?
Doing well.
What part of town did you come in from?
Germantown.
Okay. Good little hike.
A little bit.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
Well, goodness. Do we have some stories to tell?
Yep.
And we just have a few bullet points. I'm sure there's a lot of spaces to fill here in between. But
Yeah.
like I like to do at the very front end, talk a little current. So we can talk about what you're doing now, and you can promote your band and just talk about Hairspray Nation.
Right.
So how long have you been with Hairspray Nation? The drummer for Hairspray Nation, by the way.
Yes. I guess about 3 years.
okay.
Going on about 3 years, I think. Chris Cook called me out of the blue and asked me if I'd come and give it a go, and I never left. So
there was a drummer before you?
there was. I can't remember. It may have been Alan Bone. May have been playing before me.
Okay.
And I think Alan at that point in time had left and was doing the Zeppelin thing.
Is this the same Alan Bone?
Oh, no, this is a different Alan Bone, I think.
No.
Oh, is it? This is
Alan. Yeah.
Boneyard Alan Bone?
Boneyard Alan.
Boneyard Alan Bone.
Boneyard Alan.
Yeah. The one and only.
The Boneyard.
Yeah, right. He had started doing the Zeppelin thing with Paul Moreau.
Okay, Led Zeppelin.
Yeah,
right?
Led Zeppelin. That's it.
Yeah.
And
How did I not know this?
I didn't know he was in the band either.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been in it for a while, and then we switched guitar players, and I asked the guys if they'd let Nick my son audition, and he got the job, and so he's been in it for a couple of years. And
you got Mott.
Got Mott.
Now Mott used to be the bass player.
Mott was the bass player. We had a keyboard. Mark Bates was our keyboard player.
Okay.
And then Mark decided he didn't want to do it anymore, and so Mott moved to guitar, and we brought in Trip Gentz of Black 59, and
and
fame
for the Thomas Halfacre benefit.
Yeah,
that's when I learned of Trip Gentz.
Yeah,
and then only after that I was told, he's in Hairspray Nation. So I had seen him play before. Yeah. I just didn't know it because he's in a wig and sunglasses. And
that's right. That's right. And
so I didn't recognize him at the benefit at all.
And I've actually known Trip and Chris since high school, and played with Trip way back when. And so Chris Cook, lead singer, and obviously drummer extraordinaire.
Also a fantastic drummer.
100%. Yeah. So it can be a little intimidating sometimes when you're your lead singer is also a really good drummer,
for sure. Yeah, because he's with Roxy Blue now.
Yeah,
right.
Mm-hmm. And so you got to make sure you bring the goods.
Yeah.
So
you bring the goods, dude.
You do.
You have nothing to worry about.
And I also love the fact that you're not one of these guys that says, you know what, since I'm gigging all the time, I'm just going to play a small kit.
Yeah,
you don't do that.
No, well,
you look like you're ready to play the pyramid.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's one of those things where it's because of what we play.
Sure,
it's kind of appropriate,
right?
But it's also you're a drummer, you're in your cockpit, kind of, and it's comfortable to you. And I've added some electronics, so I've got an SPD and I've got some pads that I'd trigger stuff with and things like that. So it is a lot. Like I probably connect more wires than the guitar players,
right?
So it at the end of the night, I'm the last one, and everybody has to come and throw in and help me undo everything. So it's kind of a pain. But
you got to have Nick help you. I mean, he's still your son.
He does.
Son, I need you.
Yes, he does. He does. He's a good boy.
But
I do love what the SPDs and the trigger, the pads bring to the show. It really does make a huge difference. In what you're hearing.
Yeah, I mean,
even if you only use it once every 4 or 5 songs, it really makes a difference.
Right. I've got the Vibra Slap for Crazy Train.
I was just gonna ask what kind of songs use these pads. So Crazy Train's one of them.
Crazy Train, the Def Leppard stuff.
Oh,
so I've got the big, those sounds and stuff. Also trigger that first opening part to Rocket. Off the Hysteria. So I've got a sample of that, and I trigger that, and we go into Animal, off of that.
Cool.
But then I also have the tracks that we use loaded on there. So keyboard parts and things. Since we don't have Mark anymore, so we have the keyboard parts and things like that loaded on there.
I would gather not every song has tracks. Or?
No, it's more don't than do. So and it's one of those things that we kind of pick and choose from show to show which ones we're going to do. Like last night, we probably played 6 songs that had tracks.
Okay, And for the untracked songs, are you still to a click?
No.
Okay.
No. We just throw and go.
Free ball it, man.
That's
right. So I know that timeline wise, by the time people hear this, it's not last night anymore. But last night you played Arlington in the heat.
Yes.
Right. You were mentioning how brutal that is with wigs and the whole garb.
Yeah, it's an experience for sure.
Yeah.
I probably went through 6 bottles of water and a big old thing of Gatorade.
Yeah.
And still felt like I was dehydrated by the end of it all.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was fun. Big crowd. They're always great. It's always fun. So
this time of year, I'd have to lose the wig. I'm sorry. They would think I was in a Right Said Fred tribute band. I would shave everything and look like you.
And I started wearing.
That's a good way to go.
I started wearing headphones. I wear the Vic Firth, just so I could cut out all the ambient, so I can hear everything better, and I can turn it down. Actually,
you don't like the earbuds?
Well,
like
I was wearing
in-ears.
I've got 2 pair of in-ears too, but I just started noticing that when I was wearing the cans,
more cancellation.
Yeah, more cancellation, and I can really hear what I need to hear, especially on tracks when I'm playing to the click. I can really hear that. but it just made it so I didn't feel like I was having to fight to hear things. And so I could get a really good mix, and then I could turn it down a little bit. So when people see us and they see me with headphones on, I'm just using those as my monitors.
Yeah.
So that's my monitor.
But extra hot, right? So going back to the
yeah,
heat.
because it's squeezing a wig on your head.
You're wearing earmuffs.
Pretty much, yeah.
So what kind of venues do y'all play?
So, I mean, we play, Hadley's, Dan McGinnis. Haven't played Neil's in a while. It's been a while since we played there. We played Lafayette's back in January.
Have you done Roosters yet?
We've done Roosters. And so, kind of where everybody else plays.
Yeah.
I mean,
Neshobas? Have you played Neshobas?
We have not done Neshobas yet. The next gig we have is Gold Strike.
There you go.
Tunica. We've done that a few times.
Yep.
And then, Sidecar, South Haven. We got a few lined up there. And then some special event thing. We're doing the Fall Fest. We're on that bill. And so that'll definitely be a throw and go. There won't be any tracks or anything on that. That'll just be
the non-tracked stuff.
That'll be the non-track stuff.
Yeah, house kit, or do you guys bring your own kits for that, right?
No, they have
Fest?
a back line.
They have a kit.
Yeah. So do you bring other things just to add to it, or just bring your cymbals and throne and snare?
Yeah, for something like that, make it easy.
You're not bringing extra toms and
No.
I remember playing before Seeing Red at Lafayette's, and of course Chris Craig, drummer, and I'm tearing my stuff down, and I look at him, and he completely just ripped apart the house kit and just started making it his own way and adding different things to it and everything. I was like, hey, when you're Chris Craig, you can do that, I guess.
Once again, it goes back to that. That's your cockpit, right? I mean, so he has I played his kit years ago because we toured with them, opening up for Lord Tracy around the Southeast, and so my drum kit was a red pearl kit, and his was his Tama kit that he had, and but we set them up identical, the two toms offset, two floor, and there's a couple venues where we couldn't get both kits on the stage, and so he's like, man, just throw your cymbals up there and jump up behind mine, and it was easy because essentially the same thing, but it was great,
coming in, I knew that you had stories, and of course we're going to talk about your kids because we already mentioned Nick, but then there's Matt, Ireland, and Under the Radar. We want to get into all that, but I didn't realize your father was so entrenched in it all too.
Yeah.
And how that ties into your life and your upbringing and all the stories that go from there. So we're going to make this a 3-hour Joe Rogan interview. But let's just sort of like what we did during the pre-interview here. Let's go back to the beginning. So tell us more about your dad and what he was involved with.
Yeah, so my dad, so to start with, Dad was a guitar player.
Rick Ireland,
yes. Yeah. He was a guitar player, but he also was classically trained on the piano as well. And so he went to college, married my mom, obviously, and graduated and actually went to work at Baptist Hospital as a tech guy, computer guy back in the day. And John Fry, who owned Ardent, called him and said, hey, we're getting ready to open up this studios when it was over on National, and got my dad involved because my dad was, electrical engineer, and so Dad was the brains behind all the electrical stuff and, the boards.
So the very, very beginning of Ardent.
Very beginning, yeah. And I remember going there when I was really little, and walking in, and it's just a bunch of wooden partitions and these big mics hanging everywhere, and then when the new place got built, where it is now on Madison, and so my dad had a big hand in helping design that building and those studio rooms.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and so as a child, that was like they would use me. I would crawl in the floor to pull wire, or the raised floor. And
where's little Bobby at?
Yeah, so I was so little I could do that sort of stuff, But that's so during the 70s, John Fry kind of took a hiatus for a little bit, and so Dad started managing the place. And so there's Terry Manning and William Brown and Jim Dickinson and Sid Selvage and all these guys were constantly, in my sphere, growing up. And so, I get to go down there and hang out and meet all these people. ZZ Top recorded there. A lot of their albums were recorded there. Black Oak, Arkansas.
You mentioned the Rolling Stones.
The Rolling Stones was more of an outside thing, not so much with Ardent, but that came through because of Jim Dickinson and his relationship with the Rolling Stones. And so, he would pull my dad into things like that. And because they grew up, went to high school together at White Station High School, played in a band together, and called Jim Dickinson and the Regents. And so they opened up for people like Bo Diddley and stuff at the National Guard Armory. And there's a story. It's in Jim's book. And I used to hear my dad tell this story all the time, and I always wondered if it was true. And then I saw when after Jim's book had come out, it was in Jim's book, and they talk about they're opening up. And back then, when you were an opening act, what you actually did was you played during the breaks. So the other band would come on when the main act was taking a break. And so he said that the other guitar player, and I forget the guy's name, was getting upset, because Bo Diddley hadn't showed up yet. So Bo Diddley finally rolls up, and they roll up in this big station wagon. And it's got Bo Diddley on the side of it, and they're hauling out these big amps and all this stuff. And they set up. And so supposedly he was only supposed to take one break. Well, then all of a sudden it's two breaks. And so this other guitar player with my dad and Jim started getting upset about it. And he goes, what's this about two breaks? And so they're all standing kind of in a circle. This is the way I understand it. And Bo Diddley's standing right there. And my dad says Bo Diddley all of a sudden looked at all three of them and was like, you could have been Bo Diddley. And you could have been Bo Diddley. But I was Bo Diddley, and I was taking two breaks.
And that's that, everybody.
And that was that. Done. Two breaks. And so that some of the funny stuff that, I remember hearing from my dad and I always wondered. And then the other one was, after my dad had passed away, the guy, Robert Gordon, had recorded an interview with my dad. It was about 2 hours long for a book called It Came from Memphis. And he came up to me at the wake and he said, "Hey, Bobby, I've got this audio recording of your dad. I'll digitize it and send it to you." And I'm like, I love that.
Yeah.
It took me about a year before I could actually sit down and listen to it, And so one night, everybody had gone to bed. I was sitting in front of my computer, put my headphones on, started listening to it, got about 15 minutes into it. And Robert says to my dad, so Rick, tell me about Johnny Cash. And I'm kind of perked up because I'd never heard my dad talk about Johnny Cash.
Oh, cool.
Ever. And so I'm like, what's this about? And my dad says, well, when I was a teenager, I used to ride my bike to Berkeley and play guitar with Johnny Cash on his front porch. And I'm like, what?
Come on, Dad.
So I get pissed and I throw my headphones off and so I didn't listen to it for a while. And I'm like, what? Because now I can't talk to him about it. Now I can't ask that question, All the questions. Yeah. And so the funny thing is, so it comes around. So then I start wondering, is that real? I mean, and of course, yeah, Johnny Cash did live in Berkeley, over there off Summer. And so come to find out, time goes on and we find this photograph and on the back, my grandmother had written Rick with a question mark. So we're looking at the photograph and I'm like, that's my dad for sure when he was a teenager. That's Johnny Cash sitting at the piano. And so my wife, Jen, starts doing some internet sleuthing, finds a series of photographs of Johnny Cash in that house, in that room, and it matches. Everything matches. That's Johnny Cash in there. So I was like,
how old was Johnny Cash during this?
I have no idea.
I mean,
so my dad was probably 16, maybe.
And I mean, so Johnny's got to be an adult. He's got a house.
Yeah. So I don't know.
That's really cool. That was nice of him to, hey, come on, kid. Yeah. Jam with me.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess, my dad was playing guitar around.
Was this Johnny Cash pre-Johnny Cash?
I don't think so.
Because as the movie for him, he was like a door-to-door salesman.
Yeah.
And a musician on the side. Do you think it was during that time?
I honestly don't know. Yeah. But that's some of the
questions that you would love to be able to ask.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And just imagine years from now, your great grandkids are going to be looking at photographs of you with us.
Right. That's right.
They're going to be like, Dad was hanging out with Derrick and Jeff.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Bobby's dad hanging out with legends.
Yeah.
Nick and Matt's dad hanging out with us.
Legends.
Legends.
In our own
Don't even
mind.
go there. Well, you told us a funny story about your 8th grade class having a field trip
Yeah. So
to Ardent. Tell us that.
So I went to Holy Rosary, good old little Catholic school there, Alton Park Avenue, and
This may be the only time you ever hear Holy Rosary and Jim Dandy in the same story.
yeah. And so I had arranged with my dad to allow my 8th grade class to go down to Ardent for a field trip, and so we get there, and of course they're taking us around and all this, looking around and stuff. And Black Oak was recording in Studio B, and so we had kind of gathered in near the little atrium area. And there was there was snack machines and everything right there in the little corner, and so a couple of the guys, Stanley Knight and someone else, came out and signed autographs for everybody and was kind of hanging out, talking to everybody. Super cool, everybody's hanging out. So there was 2 teachers with us, and all of a sudden we hear this commotion, and there's cussing and and so
Breaking out the rosaries.
yeah, Jim Dandy's in there, and I guess he's doing vocal tracks. Well, then you hear the studio door, so and they were sealed, so you could hear the air, when you pull that door open. And he comes busting out into the hallway and didn't realize, obviously, that there was all these little 8th grade kids sitting out there. And he looked kind of shocked. And he's like, hey, and he's got on the blue jeans and the white linen shirt, and it's open all the way, And so he starts talking to everybody, of course, just as nice as could be. He ends up taking a picture with my 2 teachers with his arms around them both and his big hairy chest. And so it was one of those, Polaroids, that comes out automatically kind of thing. He autographed it, and it sat in the trophy case at Holy Rosary for years. Now, I don't think it's there anymore. I don't know what happened to it. It may have gotten thrown away. I wish I would have.
Somebody probably figured out who he was and said, no.
Could have been, but
why is this picture kind of smoking and smoldering? What's going on here?
But yeah, so that was the and so Black Oak being there. When I started playing the drums, I had a little Zildjian catalog, and it was sitting on the kitchen table, and my dad had come in and he pointed at the drummer on the back side of it, and it was Tommy Aldridge. And he goes, "You know who that is, don't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, Dad, that's Tommy Aldridge." Because at the time Tommy was playing for Pat Travers when this had come out, right? And he said, "You used to sit in his lap at the studio, down at the studio." And I was like, "What?" I didn't, because when you're that young, things aren't,
He tells you this, but not Johnny Cash story.
Right? Yeah,
Come on, Dad.
yeah. So I mean, and then years later, I ran into Tommy at he had done a clinic here, and so I said something to him about it. He laughed. He thought it was hilarious. But yeah. So I mean, that whole world was there was always this thing I used to tell people. I saw things that 10-year-old boys should never see. And my mom my dad used to tell me, if you tell your mother. You're not coming back,
right?
And then years later, I asked my mom about it, and my mom's like, I went too. I knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And it was, it was pretty crazy. I saw people doing things that.
Because we're talking 70s, right?
You're talking the 70s. Yeah. And to a kid, and it kind of made an impression on me in several different ways. It was, I've never done a drug in my life. Never smoked, drank like a fish from 12 years old until probably till I got drinking age.
We have something in common finally.
And but I think it was just because of all the things I saw. It was just one of those things where I kind of made up my mind that I don't want to do this.
That's good, because it could have gone the other way.
It could have easily.
Could
have easily gone the other way.
Because I want to live like these guys.
Sure.
These guys are my idols.
They look like they're having a good time.
Right.
Yeah. Clearly, that's how you write music and produce this stuff. You got to do these other things.
You can't play unless you do this.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah. So it was just one of those weird things. Both my parents smoked, and so I just, I had asthma growing up as a kid, and so
Me too.
that was the last thing that I thought of was smoking. It's like, why would I do that to myself? But yeah, you make those weird decisions, and
That was a good one, though.
it was, and it was hard sometimes because you get excluded, especially younger. You get excluded from things, but
Yeah.
it's all right.
Yeah, you didn't succumb to that peer pressure.
No.
I wish I could say the same for myself.
But now I drank, man. We were bad. So that goes to the neighborhood, So 4 years old, living in Parkway Village, I'm riding my little bike with training wheels down the sidewalk, and a new family had moved in 2 doors down. It's Todd Poole.
How do you remember anything at 4 years old?
I can vividly remember him standing in the driveway with his dad. And I think only because it was all of a sudden there was somebody there that was like me. Right?
Your age. Was he around your age?
Yeah, he's a month younger than I am.
Okay.
And so Todd and I became friends, and then a couple of years later, Ronnie Spain, Sarah Spain's dad, moved in the neighborhood, and he was right across the street from Todd, and so we quickly became this little gang, and so, as time went on, obviously we got into Kiss, and we got, started getting into all this stuff. Todd and I actually went and saw the Osmonds at the Mid-South Coliseum.
How cool.
I think we were 7 years old.
Wow.
And it was pretty cool, actually,
Was that your first concert?
That was my first, paying concert that
Big show.
Yeah, I'd been backstage at other things because my dad.
Yeah.
But not out in front seeing stuff.
That's probably about the same time I saw Sean Cassidy.
Yeah.
First show for you.
First show for me, and it was in the late 70s.
Yeah. So we saw that, and then of course Kiss comes around, and we all jumped on that ship quick.
Have you, at this point, are you guys dabbling in actually playing?
This is when Kiss popped on the scene, that's kind of when we all were kind of like, oh, I want to do this, Isn't
that funny? I mean, it's just crazy. Story after story after story. It's Kiss.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
How impactful that band was.
Yeah. And for me, it was, so my dad being a guitar player, I thought I wanted to be a guitar player. So Ace Frehley was my guy.
Okay.
Always has been my favorite guy. And so Ronnie got a bass. Todd got a set of drums.
Ah, so this is how Todd starts on drums.
Yeah. And so, and then there's another friend that moved in on the street named Keith, and he got a guitar. So there was 4 of us, and of course immediately we think we're going to be Kiss, and so we're practicing at Todd's because he's got the drums. So, we go, he's got a little room, and his parents worked, so they were gone during the day. And so we were, going in there, and we were, writing goofy songs and just, trying to learn how to play things. And one day Todd gets up behind his drums, and he goes to answer the telephone, I think. And I put my guitar down and just sat down behind the drums and just started playing.
Did you ask first?
I did not.
Good for you.
I just started playing, and it felt right.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a good guitar player. My guitar teacher was mean, and so it kind of turned me off. He would yell at me. And
Oh,
stuff.
God,
It was
yeah.
bad.
That's
He yells at me on the drums all the time.
that's right. I do.
And so I just so I kind of started to turn away from the guitar, and but I love guitars. Like I think they're works of art. I'm just enamored with them. But but so that's how it kind of started. And so then Todd and I, started kind of connecting through that, and I got a drum set. So this is where the funny thing comes in. So I get a phone call one day from a lady down the street, and she said, "Hey, my boss's son is starting a band. Wanted to know if you wanted to play." So the deal my dad had made with me was that I'll buy you a drum set if the band teacher at Christian Brothers, because I went to Christian Brothers High School for a year and a half before I left. He said, if he tells me after your freshman year that you can play, I'll buy you a drum set. I was like, okay, fair enough. So freshman year, I play in the Christian Brothers band. And at the end of the year, so he knew the band director real well.
What did you play in band? Were you snare? Where were you in the percussion line?
You start out playing bells and xylophone and all that, so you learn all your scales and doing all that sort of stuff. And
Front ensemble.
And
there you go.
And then you switch over to snare drum, and then we start working on the rudiments and and all that sort of stuff. And he was real big on the march type stuff, right? Didn't really care for the kit. So the funny thing that happens is spring concert time comes around, and one of the other guys in the drum line also played piano. Real name is Rick Averwater, and his family owned Amro. Averwater's Amro, So he's over there playing piano, and he starts playing "People of the South Wind" by Kansas, and I'm like, I know that. So I grab my sticks off my music stand and I run over to the little 4-piece little Beverly drum kit that we had, and I start playing with him, and he turns around and looks at me and he's like, what? So the head guy of the drum line walks in the band director's office and is like, hey, I think we just found our guy to play the kit, because there was some stuff in the show for the spring that they needed somebody that could actually play the kit. And so that's kind of how that all came about. And so I was, had to learn how to read kit, music. And so then that summer, Dad bought me a black Ludwig drum kit. Now here's the funny thing. When we first got it, all it had was a kick drum, an acrylite snare drum, Ludwig acrylite snare drum, and a floor tom, and one cymbal stand. And so that's all I had. So I had a practice pad, so I made that my hi-hat. So I'd tap it.
Something to hit.
Yeah. And I had a little 12-inch little piece of crap cymbal, garbage can lid.
Right.
So I get a call to go do this audition, and that's what I take to the audition, because that's all I have.
Right.
So Dad says to me, he goes, if they want you to be the drummer, I'll get you the rest of the kit. I'm like, okay. So I go down there and we pull up. My mom in the station wagon, and we pull up, and they're loading out the guy who auditioned in front of me, and it's a massive drum kit. It's like it's like 2 kick drums, and, I'm just I'm like, there's no way.
Let's just go home, Mom.
There's no way. So the guys, it was Jeff Altenburn, Jody Clayton, Mark Day, and some other guys. They come over to my car, and they're going to load in my gear.
Are they all the same age as you?
Yeah, they're all. Yeah, we're all. I think Mark was maybe a year older than us, so we're all freshmen going into sophomore year.
Gotcha.
Is what we are. So they get there, and they look at me and they're like, "Is this it?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is all. This is all I got." And they're like, "Are you going to get more?" And I'm like, "I said, my dad told me if I get the gig, he'll buy me more stuff." And they're like, "All right." So we go in, we set it up, and so. So they're like looking at me and they go, "Do you know Rocky Mountain Way?" I go, "Yeah, I can get through that." And so we start playing it, and we get through the whole song. And they stop and they look at each other and they turn to look at me and they go, "Did you see that guy that just left here with all that drum stuff?" He goes, "He couldn't play that song."
See, it didn't matter. Yeah.
And it's like, "You got the gig."
There you go.
And so, sure enough, my dad, got the 2 mounted toms, and I got a couple other cymbal stands.
Did you get a real hi-hat?
Yeah, I got a hi-hat, and Todd Poole gave me an old set of hi-hat cymbals that he had,
cool.
And he gave me those, and so that's where it all started. That's
And the name of the band was
Zach Curlin is what.
Zach Curlin.
Yeah.
And that's the street?
There's a street near Memphis, near University of Memphis, named Zach Erlin, and that's the guys in the band thought of that, and so we did the Bad Company and Grand Funk Railroad and all that stuff. That's what we were playing. Ted Nugent.
Any shows? I know that
we did.
That
we played. The Jerry Lewis Telethon used to be on. Liberty Land would stay open all night long, and they would broadcast from there, and so they would have different bands playing in different areas because they had all those show stages, and stuff. And so we actually did a show on one of the show stages, probably 11 o'clock at night or whatever. Did some other things. Around and at that time Todd was in a band called Chapter, with I think Hal McCormick was in it, and Mike Merrick on bass, and then there was 714, which was Eddie Matlock and Jeff Scott at that time, Greg Parchman on bass. It was before Wayne, I think, got in it, and so that was Parkway Village. That all of us around there, because Eddie Matlock lived a few streets over. Jeff Scott lived across Perkins from us, and so they all went to Wooddale. Most of these guys went to Wooddale, and so and then I ended up going to Glenmore when I left Christian Brothers. Went to Glenmore. Wayne Sweeney went to Glenmore with me, so he was a year ahead of me, and so we were all, that was the thing. And
did you know Wayne well in high school?
I knew him, good enough. I mean, he was a year older, so I mean, But yeah, I mean, Wayne, Uncle Way Way,
Uncle Way Way.
It's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah.
Uncle Way Way.
So, but yeah, I mean, Wayne, one of the sweetest human beings you could ever meet, and obviously uber talented, but, but yeah. So, life on Stone Street, that was the name of our street, was fun.
Early on, you're in this music community, with all the, and it's funny hearing how you saying so-and-so lived on this street and so-and-so lived over there. It's just a different time. You guys didn't have video games and phones, and it's like that's all you had to do, get out, come home when the sun goes down.
Yeah.
And so more kids got creative, I feel like, back then.
Yeah.
And you just knew all the new plays. So
sometimes in the wrong way.
But you quickly started learning. Yeah, right. But you start learning about all the other players in the community. And then that's how it all builds. And you start, this cross-pollination in different bands. Like now you see, a lot of players that are in multiple bands and everyone knows each other. But it goes all the way back to your teens when that started for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was the right time, it was a great time to be young and carefree and could do whatever you wanted. And I mean, we would. I mean, I laugh at my boys because they'd sleep in during the summer, and I'm like, we would be up at 7 o'clock in the morning outside, sitting on the curb. What are we going to do today?
Right.
And then we'd be on the go till 10, 11 o'clock at night, as little kids, just constantly on the go, riding bikes, skateboards, just doing all that nonsense. And then music crept in. And so then that became the big thing. And Todd eventually moved out of the neighborhood. And so we kind of lost touch for a little bit. Just, he was going to school at a different high school. And so, we kind of lost touch with each other for a bit, but still, there's still that bond. I mean, there's still that thing. I tell people a lot of times it was the greatest childhood. I mean, it was amazing. The stuff that we did and the fact that we're still alive.
That's right.
Some of it. But it was, I couldn't add, and it was one of those weird things when you're growing up in those times, a fight could break out between two people that you're always hanging around with each other. You get in a fist fight, you get a bloody nose, get a, busted mouth, but you're back outside the next day and everybody's buddies again, and that's how you settled things, but there was no grudges. Like nobody held a grudge. There wasn't any of that. And we went through our fair share. And somebody bought somebody 2 pairs of boxing gloves, which was a bad idea.
I can see where this is going.
Yeah, and it that got pretty brutal.
And that will start more arguments.
Yeah, and
you sucker punched me, man.
And there's always that, the teasing and the all the stuff that went on. And I was probably the smallest one of the bunch, and so I was like this wiry little, but you learn how to take care of yourself quick. And so, but I wouldn't trade it for all the tea in China, man. It was just absolutely fantastic. And, how we got our introduction into music and playing and doing all that, it all started there in Todd's house.
Right. So to all the kids and a lot of adults on Facebook, that's how it used to happen.
That's right.
Not behind a keyboard.
No.
Right.
They settled it. Yeah. Old school.
That's right.
And then it's over.
That's it.
It's done.
Yeah.
And 30,000 people on Hernando Happenings don't have to hear about it.
That's right. 100%. 100%. It was just our little crew. We knew, and that's all that needed to know, and that was it. Move on.
So you were telling us before we started recording a little bit about how you took a hiatus and
Correct.
you got involved in other things, but it still somehow led back to music.
Yeah, so traveling through the music, timeline, we get to the late 80s, early 90s, and
The greatest era ever
Yeah.
in the history of music.
and so, trying to get a record deal, obviously Roxy Blue, Tora Tora, they'd gotten theirs and they were doing their thing. And so everybody else, we're all clamoring for something. And,
Do you want to pause and land on that band first? Because it leads to the other story. The name of the band is Ireland.
it's Ireland. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the band before we get
Yeah,
into
sure. I mean, it was,
the career after?
Yeah. So Ireland was kind of, it's unfortunate it was named after me, but I never thought it was right to name a band after a drummer, but everybody in the band, we couldn't think of anything else. And everybody was like, man, your name's cool. Let's just do that. It's like, okay. So that's how that came about. And it was, when it started out, it was Ken Houston was singing.
All right.
It was a guy named Ross Reynolds, may he rest in peace, passed away a couple of years ago. And then Rock Johnson on guitar and Mike Rolfe on guitar. And so we started playing the Daisy and doing things.
What year is this?
This would have been 80-ish. Late
80s.
Yeah, late
Okay.
80s.
Okay.
And we're doing like frat things, and big frat parties and doing stuff like that. And so at some point we make a lead singer change, and we get this, and this was all. So, do you remember Jim Green, who ran the amphitheater, Snowden Grove?
Mm-mm.
So Jim Green ran it for the longest time, and he was kind of managing us at the moment, and so he ended up getting this singer from Knoxville, Tennessee, a guy named Brian O'Rourke. Brian comes down. He looked like a Captain Caveman is what I called him. His hair is going everywhere, and so Brian comes in. We write all of this original material because we're going to go on the road opening for Lord Tracy around the Southeast, and so we write all this material and go out on the road with them. Had a blast. Started at Juanita's in Little Rock, and then went across. And there were some great stories with that. I mean, that obviously with those guys. So we go and do that, and then off of that, we get in the studio, and Tim Goodwin, who's a award-winning bass player, and he was a teacher, a professor at U of M, and he ran. I think it was Memphis Sounds. I can't remember. It was the recording studio that eventually became the Hard Rock, and then it became Tin Roof.
Oh, okay.
And so he got us in. We cut some demos, and he started sending things out. We got a bite from Capitol Records, and so lead singer Brian was always like, overanalyzing himself all the time, and he's, I'm not good enough, I can't sing, and he's looking at people like Sebastian Bach, and that's what is going on.
Well,
at
you
the
said
time.
he looked like a caveman, so he might have been.
But
I'm not as pretty as those guys.
no, he cleaned up quite nice. But great front man, lots of energy. And he could sing. I mean, he could, and but he had an issue with it,
Okay, yeah.
And so he got cold feet and just took off. And he was a sound engineer as well, and so he ended up going on the road and doing monitors for people and stuff for a while. Now he actually runs a motocross team that's Team Faith motocross team, and so. So when that happened, I remember Tim telling me, it's not going to happen. This is dead and done. And so a couple other things happened where, I just saw that writing on the wall kind of thing when my dad told me about the snakes in the grass kind of thing, and I woke up one morning and drove to the Mall of Memphis and got my hair cut, all of it off, and said, I'm done. And
I mean, that's the statement. I'm cutting my hair.
yeah,
Over.
done. And so I was dating Jen at that time, and that's a whole nother story that for the ages. But
like I said, it's a 3-hour interview. Today, so.
yeah. Well, just put it this way quickly. So I met her. I had an apartment. She came over. I was throwing a party for my mother. It was my mom's birthday. I was living with Ken Houston and Ross. My mom came over. My sister brought Jen over. My youngest sister brought Jen over. They had just finished their junior year at St. Agnes. And so I see Jen. Of course, she's beautiful, and I'm like, but she's too young. She's 17. And
how old were you?
I was 25.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. And so she sits down on the floor, and there's a big scar on her knee. And I'm like, what'd you do to your knee? She's like, oh, I tore my ACL playing club soccer. I'm like, really? Because I'm a huge soccer nut, and so here we go. And so the next thing you know, we start seeing each other kind of off and on. She'd come to rehearsals and stuff, and fast forward to November. So it's Thanksgiving. It's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We had just come off the road with Lord Tracy, and we were doing the final show at the Daisy. And her mom found a letter that I'd written her. And I was getting ready to go downtown for sound check. And so she says, you got to come by. My mom wants to talk to you. I'm like, okay, great. So I've got super long hair, leather jacket on, stretch jeans, black boots, the whole 9 yards. Pull up, and at the time I was house sitting for this guy, and so I was driving his white Mercedes.
Oh man, she thinks this guy's rolling in it.
So I come in, and her mom's cooking, and she pulls this wooden spoon out of the thing, and she shoves it in my face. She's like, "What are you doing with my daughter?" And I'm like, "It's not what you think." And of course Jen's freaking out, and I can only imagine she's like, "You better not be here, I'll cut your nuts off." And, yeah, it was pretty rough. So I leave, right? And so then time goes on, and she tells her parents, she goes, "Look, when I turn 18, I'm gonna date him." And so her dad says, "Well, his only redeeming quality is that he's Catholic." And
there you go.
And so time goes on, and finally, they start to get to know me and realize that I'm not this bad guy that that obviously it.
Yeah, I think the age difference probably freaked them out a little.
It would me. I mean, if I had a daughter, I'd absolutely totally get it.
Yeah.
But so we end up, obviously getting married. We're going to we go to the rehearsal dinner. Now the cool thing is, my priest, Father Joe Kerrigan, that married us, his brother at the time was a roadie for Iron Maiden.
I mean, they lived different lives.
And so we go to our rehearsal dinner, and at the rehearsal dinner, her mom gets up and gives a speech, and talks about how that I taught her not to judge a book by its cover, and so on and so forth, and all this, and hands me the wooden spoon.
Oh, how cool!
And it's got a little ribbon. It's sat in our kitchen ever since. It's always in our kitchen.
Sweet.
And so Father Kerrigan left because Iron Maiden was playing 616, and he was going to go see his brother. So he went, and so that that's kind of how. And so Jen and I have been together. So we've known each other since June 1st, 1990. Got married in 96.
So how old were you all when you got married?
I was 31, and she was about to turn 23.
Wow. Look at you, stud.
Yeah.
Now, could you imagine going to an Iron Maiden concert and seeing a priest with the white collar just roaming around?
And supposedly he got on stage.
I was going to say, you'd think he's part of the show.
Yeah. Yeah. But
maybe Eddie's going to come out and attack the priest.
I mean, there's something going on there for sure.
Yeah. So we've been,
Well, congratulations on that.
It's like Sean Few and I were talking one time. We said we definitely married up.
Yeah.
You know, for
Good for
sure.
you.
She's fantastic.
I love this story about the spoon. That's really sweet.
Yeah.
That the mom, your mother-in-law,
Yeah.
saw the story in that spoon.
Yeah.
As a moment where she almost killed you.
What you gonna do?
For sure. But so we were going so through that. That's how I kind of stopped playing.
Cut the hair.
Cut the
hair's
hair.
gone.
And so I'd started working computer stuff and started working for Apple through this company. So I was half badged. I was an half badged Apple employee and half badged from this other company out of Nashville. So I went to all the system engineer trainings that Apple would give, and all this sort of stuff. And so I was in the education market. So I was, responsible for computers in schools.
And at this time, Apple's young. I mean, this is cutting edge stuff. Right? This is the beginning of what we know as PCs, right?
This is 94.
Yeah.
Right in that time frame. So through a weird kind of string of events.
The internet's not even a thing yet, is it?
It is barely.
Barely.
You got AOL and some other
dial-up.
Right. And so I happened to email. So I met Slaughter on their first tour. Their Jeff Collin, their advanced guy. I was working at Sound Shop in Hickory Mall, and he had come in, and we were talking, and he's like, "Man, you want to come backstage to the show?" This is when they were opening for Kiss on the Hot in the Shade tour, and I was like, "Yeah." And I also had passes for Kiss for that tour, and so I was like, "Yeah, that'd be great." So I met the guys in Slaughter, some of the nicest people you could ever meet, and so through that, I eventually emailed Bloss and the drummer and said, hey, blah, blah, just a little paragraph about stuff and mentioned that I was, working for Apple. Bloss writes me back. He's like, dude, I want to talk to you about some of this stuff. Send me your phone number. So I sent it to him. Bloss calls me and he's like, man, we're getting ready to record what was the Revolution album. And he said, we need a rig for Pro Tools. Can you get us something? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. So I called the main engineer that was in Atlanta, told him what was going on. He's like, yeah, we can get something together. Tell me where you need it. He goes, I'll ship it to you. It was in a big Pelican case, and then I shipped it out to Las Vegas where they were. And so I got credit on that Revolution album, in the liner notes for getting them the rig to do that with. So through that, I started to become pretty good friends with those guys. And so Mark eventually moved to Brentwood, just outside of Nashville. And so I was supposed to go to this conference. And Mark's like, man, don't do that. Come stay with me. Don't stay at the hotel. Just stay with me.
And this is Mark Slaughter.
Yeah. And I'm like,
the guy.
I'm like, okay. I said, sure you don't? He goes, yeah, man, it's cool. Come on. So I drive there and I walk in, and you would never know that he was platinum, artist Mark Slaughter, He
didn't have things plastered on his walls.
No. So I walk in the house, beautiful house, obviously, big house. I walk in. The only way you would know that he was a musician was there's an acoustic guitar next to the fireplace, and his American Music Award was up on the mantle. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're talking and stuff, and I said to him, I was like, where's all your stuff? And he said, oh, come with me. So we go downstairs in the basement, and so it was right next to the garage, so he could roll cases out and do all that sort of stuff. And so he's got the little studio set up and a little electronic drum kit. Now at this point, they had no idea that I played. I hadn't talked about it, hadn't said a word, because that's not why I was dealing with him. I wasn't trying to gain anything from anybody. So I was like, are these on? He's like, yeah. So I grabbed the sticks and I started playing Rosanna, he reaches over and grabs my hand.
Smart to go to that's such an iconic drum part.
Right.
Yeah.
He grabs my hand. He's like, wait a minute.
Where did this come from?
He goes, you don't just pick up the sticks and start playing that. Come out with it. What's going on? And so I was like, yeah, I said, blah, blah, kind of told my story. And he's like, do you got any music with you? And I go, yeah, I actually have the CD of, the stuff that we had recorded. And he goes, well, I need to go to Home Depot, grab it out of your car. You ride with me. We'll listen to it in the car.
So the CD, is this Ireland?
Yeah.
The band Ireland.
Yeah, it's just the demos.
Gotcha.
I had put them on CD.
Uh-huh.
So we threw him in the car, and we drive. So here I am riding with Mark Slaughter to Home Depot. And and so we're listening to it. And he's like, dude, this is good stuff. What happened? And I kind of tell him the story. And so we get back and I stayed the rest of the weekend, had a great time and stuff. Go home. It was a couple months later. He's texting with Jen because Jen's pregnant with Nick. His wife's pregnant with a child as well. And they're both due about the same time. And so he's texting with Jen, and he says to Jen, hey, what's Bobby doing in a couple weekends? And she's like, I don't know. Let me ask. So
why didn't he just text you?
I don't know. I guess because he was just talking to her.
Yeah.
So he says, hey man, I'm thinking about releasing some stuff in Europe, solo, because it's still happening there,
Yeah, so now we're in the grunge era.
Yeah,
right? And
he's like, things are still happening over there. He goes, you want to come play drums on it? I'm like, yeah. And
hell yeah.
He goes, we're going to do it at Michael Wagner's place, and Wolf Hoffman is going to play guitar on it. So Wolf Hoffman from Accept,
nice,
balls to the wall, that guitar player. And so I'm like, yeah, cool. So April 16th, 1998. So I'm driving to Nashville. There's tornado warnings all during the day. I'm having to pull off the interstate. Finally get to Brentwood, get to his house. It's cleared out a little bit. We jump in the car. There's studios in Mount Juliet.
Yep.
Wolf had bought this really big plot of land, and there was a carriage house on the property. And they had turned that into a recording studio, like Sebastian Bach recorded there, and stuff. I mean, it's an unbelievable place. You walk in and there's platinum albums and the Skid Row, with all, 10 times platinum, all that kind of stuff. I've got pictures of all that stuff. It's really cool. So we get there, and I'm like, holy crap, this is pretty cool. So I go set my drums up. I just took a little 4-piece, my little red Pearl kit that I had, and set all that stuff up, put my stuff in, and so we're like, let's get some levels. So I put my headphones on, and doing the thing. They keep getting up and walking out. And I'm like, so at one point and they're like, no, it's all right. So I'm back at it again. They get up and they walk out again. I'm like, dadgummit.
Who's they? Like
so
Mark?
It's Wolf, Mark, and Michael.
Just leaving the control room?
They keep leaving the control room. And so I set my headphones down and I go walking out. And Mark comes walking back in and he goes, hey, now, so these are 2 guys from Germany and 1 from Las Vegas, and we're in Mount Juliet. And they're like, is it bad when the hail's this big?
Oh,
and
no.
I was like, yeah. And so I open the door, and it's like somebody's on the roof dumping golf balls. Oh, and it's about a 40-yard trek across this big gravel driveway to get to the house. About that time, Mark's wife calls and says, tornado just hit downtown Nashville. It's headed y'all's way.
Oh, boy.
So they're looking at me, and I said, Wolf, do you have a basement? He's like, no, I don't have a basement. And I go, well, we probably ought to go to the house. Probably shouldn't be in here. Let's go to the house. So we go to the house, and
did you just get pelted with hail?
Yeah. Imagine somebody following you, hitting you with golf balls.
So you're running as hard and fast as possible. Yeah.
And so we get in the house, and the house faces east, and so there's these 2 huge picture windows that look out over the land, and it's beautiful out there. It's unbelievable. And so I'm like, we need to find some place to go, And so there was a bathroom that was like under the staircase, And I said, that's probably a good place to go.
So you guys are all snuggled up in there.
So we're all kind of standing around, and I'm looking out the front window. Michael's in the dining room, sitting at the dining room table, and Wolf's wife Gabby's walking around, and she's looking, trying to see what's going on, and it gets dead quiet.
That's a terrible sign.
Dead quiet.
Yeah, you're in the eye now.
Yeah.
And we're all like, and I'm looking, and I see a tree over by the carriage house go like this and then back up like real quick. And I'm like, the tornado touches down in the front yard, probably 70 yards from the porch. It gets huge, and it sounds like a jet plane winding up for takeoff. And I remember yelling, "There it is!" And everybody's screaming, and so Gabby starts yelling because they had a little pen. They had a little potbelly pig and stuff in a little pen on the side of the house, and a tree had fallen in it. While we were watching this whole thing. The good thing is it was moving away from us, so it kind of moved diagonally, but it hit this grove of trees where you kind of came off the main road and did this gravel road. The gravel road went on up behind us, and Charlie Daniels' manager lived at the top of this hill. And so it goes through, and I always tell people when it hit the grove of trees, it looked like a little kid pulling toys out of a toy box. Trees just flying. And so now I'm thinking, great, the tree's going to hit the house. We're going to die. It's just going to crush the house. And so the rocking chairs get pulled off the porch, out into the yard. And so it goes on. It ends up tearing up 2 houses on the main road, hits a horse stable, and it did tons of, it ended up being an F3. It ended up doing a lot of damage. So we jump in the truck, Wolf's pickup truck, with a chainsaw. So now I'm in the pickup truck with Michael Wagner, Wolf Hoffman, Mark Slaughter, and a tornado has just hit where we are, and we're going to go chainsaw trees.
Yeah, tracking is now not
done.
on the list.
Right. So we go around, we turn, and there's no way you can get to the road because there's big, huge cedar trees and stuff that have fallen over. And a little old man comes up the hill, and he's got his chainsaw. And so while we're there, Mark gets a call again, and it's his wife, and she said, there's another one headed y'all's way.
Oh, no.
So we jump in the truck to go back. Wolf starts the truck. Humans Beings is playing on the radio from the Twister soundtrack. And Mark looks at me. I'm in the back seat. Mark looks at me and goes, that's not good.
Not a good sign.
So we drive back to the house. Luckily, that one didn't hit us. But we were still able to track. They got the power back on. Jen drove up. She was freaking out. All this was going on. That was her birthday. She drives up, so she got to watch us track. And so we tracked a couple songs, and it was amazing watching those guys work. And just being a part of that, and I got to spend some really cool time with them and have dinner, and so Wolf asked me
almost died.
Wolf asked me at dinner. He's like, "Did you have a gong?" And I was like, "No." He goes, "Good man." He goes, "Did you have bass drums that were 2 feet long, 3 feet long, 4 feet long?" I was like, "No." And so he started telling stories about the Accept days, and they couldn't fit sometimes on the stage with all the stuff they had.
The big gong behind them.
It's hilarious. But there's
Did Mark move back to Las Vegas after that?
I'm out of here, man.
He actually moved to Franklin. He's in Franklin.
Yeah.
But
Did this stuff get released?
No, it didn't. It was I don't. And then Mark, I think Mark released a couple solo albums later, like in the 2000s. And I don't remember the 2 songs that we did. I don't remember them being on there. But just some of the nicest people that I have ever been around. Mark and I still text, and Happy Father's Day and Merry Christmas and Happy Birthday and all that sort of stuff. And just really great people. So through that, the funny thing is that they were on the road. Slaughter was on the road opening for Alice Cooper. So I'm driving down the interstate. Jen calls me and says, Alice Cooper just called here.
There you go.
Why is Alice Cooper calling our house? And I was like, it's probably something to do with Apple computer stuff, because everybody was using, that stuff. A lot of them were doing production with that. And that's what it was. They were looking to get a laptop. So, I've helped that. And then Metal Edge magazine. You remember the old Metal Edge magazine? So Jerry that ran that, I dealt with her a little bit and got her some stuff, and then I had met Tommy Thayer when Tommy Thayer was in Black and Blue, and we had gone to a party. Black and Blue opened for Kiss at the Mid-South Coliseum. They were staying at the Holiday Inn that was at McLean and Union. And so we went to their after party, and so they had 2 big suites, and tubs were iced down with everything, And so we're in there hanging out with them, and so I we got to hang with them. Bruce Kulick and Mark Weiss, the photographer, came in, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun hanging out with those guys. So
that's my favorite Kiss guitarist,
Bruce.
Yeah, I love Bruce's playing.
And so we years later, I messaged Tommy, and so, because he was, at this point, he was road manager for Kiss. And this is when the original 4 were together, and still doing their thing after the reunion. And he said, man, I'll leave you and your wife tickets and passes at the They were playing the Pyramid. I'm like, cool. So we go to the show, go backstage, talking to Tommy. Tommy's got his laptop, and he's like, man, can you help? I'm having a problem with something. I'm like, yeah. So I fix it for him on the fly right there. And he's like, man, they're going to charge me $400 in LA to do this. And I was like, no, dude, it's a firmware thing. It's, you know, dude. And he's like, wait a minute. So he leaves, comes back, Doc McGee, his laptop. So I fixed Doc's laptop.
There you go.
He's like, and so he comes back in and he goes, hey man, you're not going to be able to see the guys. He said, but what are you doing Friday? I'm like, what's Friday? He goes, we're going to be in Nashville. And Paul Stanley wants you to do something to his laptop. So I look at Jen. Jen goes, we'll be in Nashville.
Nice.
So we go up and we run into, you know, I call Tommy. They send the guard out to come get us. This is early in the day. We go in, we go to the production room and meet the production manager. Her name was Diane, and really cool lady. And they give us all our credential stuff and everything. And so she gives us some tickets to go eat. And she goes, well, why don't y'all go grab something to eat? The guys aren't here yet. So, you know, so we walk out of this door and we start walking down the hallway, and Gene Simmons comes out of one of the doors, and he's got his New York Yankees baseball hat on. And he stops and he looks at Jen and he goes,
oh, no.
Yeah. And he goes, how are they? And Jen, being Jen, looks right at him and goes, they're just fine, you know? And then he starts laughing. He's like, what are y'all doing? So we're going to eat. He goes,
What a way to just break the ice.
Yeah. And,
totally hits on your wife.
Yeah. And then,
God.
and then he goes after y'all, you know? And so we walk.
Oh, now he's a gentleman.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And so we go back and hang out in the little commissary little area. And so Jen could tell the story because she got up to get dessert, and Gene was at the dessert table, and she walked up, stood beside him, and she said something to him, and he started shaking his head, started laughing, and was like, stop, you know, because I mean, Jen's one of the guys, you know, and so things go on, and Tommy comes back, and so Peter Criss comes in there, and you know, and I'm like a kid in the candy store now, because I'm like, holy crap, this is the 4 original guys, and you know, this was my band as a kid, and so I noticed that, you know, it's getting later, you know, and I'm like, wait a minute, so I find somebody to get Tommy on the radio, and so Tommy's like, oh man, hang on. So Tommy comes back, grabs us, and walks us around this corner, and there's this black curtain that stops about that high, and I see their boots on the other side of the curtain, and I'm like, holy crap. And he pulls it back, and there they are, all 4 of them, you know, and you know, all of a sudden I'm in 7th grade again, you know. And
what year is this?
This is 2000. It would have been their farewell tour.
The first of many.
This wasn't. I know they did a show in Nashville where it was them and Motley Crue.
This was
Yeah,
this is way before that.
Before that,
because this is still Ace Frehley, Peter Criss. This is when they're still in the band.
Gotcha.
But prior to that, when Paul arrived, I went back in the production office and sat with Paul, butt cheek to butt cheek, on the arm of a couch with our laptop up on the thing, you know, trying to help him with. It was a Photoshop thing, and
what were these guys like? Were they?
Oh,
we already know Gene and did his thing.
Absolutely the nicest people that you could.
Cool.
I mean, just, you know, which was great for me because, I mean, you know.
Starstruck.
Yeah, big time. And but they treated us like gold. I mean, they were just the nicest people, absolutely nicest people. And
did you tell Ace that he's your guy?
No, I didn't.
You didn't mark. You didn't be a mark in there. That's good. Good move.
And so so, you know, obviously they leave and they put the Superman curtain up and they do their thing. And so then we get our picture made with them. And so then Gene says to the head of security, he's like, take care of them. And so we had bought tickets. We had tickets to the show and everything. He's like, take care of them. Now, Ken was with us. Ken Houston was with us, with his wife. And he's like, take care of them. So he takes us to the production office again, gives us earplugs. And then he starts walking us out, right? And so we walk out. This was at the Starwood Amphitheater, if you remember that place. So we're walking around, and we start walking towards the stage, down towards the front. And I'm like going, where are we going? Front row center.
That's awesome.
And Ken's with you.
Ken's, yeah.
So they're not left out in the nosebleeds.
They didn't get their picture made with them, which I felt bad about, but I mean, they just wouldn't. Yeah. You know, it's one of those weird things that they do. But because I asked Tommy, I was like, hey, you know, he's like, nah, I can't do it. And so, but we all four now are front center, right? Show starts. The guys come out, so they obviously recognize us. They see us there. They're throwing picks at us. They're trying to get Jen to pull her top up, you know. And she keeps pointing at me like, "That's my," you know, and kind of thing. And they're laughing. And so awesome. Night goes on.
You should have pulled your top up.
And so Peter Criss comes out, sings Beth, gives Jen a rose.
Nice.
You know, and
name's Jen, not Beth.
Yeah, and
I appreciate it though.
But just one of the most amazing experiences.
That's cool.
And just cool. So cool. I mean, just really, really great people.
All because you know how to fix a computer.
Isn't that funny? And how it just sucked you right back in. So you've just lived a life from childhood through all these years of, you know, just being immersed in it somehow.
Yeah, yeah, really, and I love it. I mean, I do. I truly do. It's in my blood, and it's like I told Jen one time. I said, I'm going to do this until I can't. You know, I mean, it's just part of me, and music is. I told the boys, I said, look, if I ever get to the point where, you know, I'm in a coma or whatever, just put some headphones on me and play my music. Just pump my playlists into my head, you know, because that's where I want to be. But yeah, so I mean, cool, fun. Things, you know, that you know, weird turns that you take. And my dad knew Eddie Kramer, like, you know, so I used to bug my dad to death. I want to meet Kiss, you know. Dad's like, yeah, just stupid people. I'm not going to do that, and blah blah blah, you know. And so when I did that, my dad's still alive, and so I drove over to his house, and he's like, so how were they? I'm like, Dad, they were great. You know, we had a blast, you know. And he's like, well, they're pretty smart guys, I guess.
He's old, grizzled, from a different era.
Yeah, so you know, it's. But I mean, my dad introduced me to the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac, and you know, I mean, that was the kind of stuff that, you know, Steely Dan, all that sort of stuff played in the house. My dad would sit there and play Reeling in the Years, you know, on his guitar, and you know.
And now you're sitting with me and Jeff.
If all this had happened today, you'd have to pay Gene to fix his laptop.
This was before. Yeah. This was right before that whole thing started.
Yeah.
The VIP thing. This was right before that.
Well, dude, I mean, this has already gone long, but we have to talk about your kids. We have to include. Absolutely. We touched on Nick because he's with you in Hairspray Nation, but then you get Matt Ireland with the whole history of Under the Radar.
Do you have any kids we don't know about?
Actually, I do. I have an older son named Justin.
Okay.
And he's not a musician. He's more of an athletic guy.
Gotcha.
You know, and I have 3 grandchildren.
How old is Justin?
Justin is.
Can we convert him? I guess is what I'm getting.
30. Justin is 35. Yeah, I believe that's right.
Okay.
And so, you know, he's got a beautiful wife named Adrian, and awesome. and 3 little ones.
Cool.
So they already love the song "Boom" by Under the Radar. So they pull it up on, you know, Spotify and stuff and play it for them. They're like, "That's Matt. That's that's Matt."
So let's try to encapsulate Under the Radar, because it also ties in with taking your kids to Stage Stop. You know, I want to try to overlap this as best as possible in, relatively speaking, a shorter amount of time. So you start bringing both kids to Stage Stop at what age?
So Nick was first. Nick was probably 15, maybe somewhere around in there.
And just took them because, hey, I want to introduce them to the scene. And
we had gone to one of their open mic night things. Sarah Spain had gone and played, and so Nick went one night and got up there, and the funny thing was that you know, Chris Petrangelo and their dad, Chris's dad, got up and sang Kashmir. And Nick played on it, you know, with him and stuff. It was pretty awesome, pretty fun, and so that's kind of how that started, and then with Matt. They were about to open for Kansas, They were 11 and 12 years old, and they were opening for Kansas at Snowden Grove, and they were going to be direct support. They're right in front of Kansas, and so the week before, Lord Tracy was going to play, and so they ended up opening for Lord Tracy at Stage Stop. And Nita immediately fell in love with him, you know, as a lot of people did. You know, even the guys in Lord Tracy were like, "Holy crap!" You know, it's like, there's kind of a you know, funny nostalgic thing about the fact that they're so little, but then they start playing, and you're like, wait a minute.
Like when we had the three guys in for like a special intro, pushing their reunion show, I dug in and found their Facebook videos and stuff. It is so cool. You know, I don't know how old they were in the video I watched or the videos. They're probably 12, 13. And they just brought it. It's like you could close your eyes and the music sounds like adults. And then singer Zeke.
Yeah.
You can tell it's a kid, but he's wailing. I mean, he's just belting it out with all the confidence in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it all happened.
It's like nobody told them they were kids.
Right.
Yeah.
It was one of those, it's like lightning struck, and you have these three kids who have stage presence. They're not afraid to be up there. Nothing rattles them.
And Matt was the bass player.
Matt's the bass player. Yeah. And so it took off. So the Kansas guys came out on stage and were filming them.
Sure.
Because they were like, and then one of the guys for Kansas told the production crew, give them full lights, turn it on, you know, because you know how they always do.
Right.
They were in the middle of doing War Pigs, and they were like, you know,
fired up.
Yeah, and so from that, then they opened for 38 Special at Snowden Grove. They opened up for Better Than Ezra at Snowden Grove. Opened up for Brett Michaels at Snowden Grove. Saliva, L.A. Guns.
Damn.
Yeah.
Nita Strauss from Alice Cooper's band.
So now even through your kids, we talked about how your childhood working with Apple and how that connected you to the music world, and then now your kids are bringing you in, like, because of them and because of Matt specifically with Under the Radar. Here you are.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're meeting all these bands.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's wild, man.
And it's like they played for opened for Loverboy down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and when they got off stage, the line for their merch booth was like 50 yards long. You know, people were like just blown away by them. And I mean, a big part of when they released that first CD. So, I had brought Todd back in the fold, Todd Poole, you know, and so Todd came in, and at first Todd was kind of reluctant. He's kind of like, I don't know, you know, the kids, I don't know, you know. So I was like, dude, just come over and listen to them. He's like, all right. So he comes over. They wrote a song first night. They were there together, and so that's kind of how that whole thing started with them doing the CDs that they did. They originally got together. Zeke was taking guitar lessons, or actually, his dad reached out to Bob Boscia to take guitar lessons. Matt had already been doing something with Bob, so Bob was like,
"I remember that.
I'm gonna put these two guys together." And Zeke had been at School of Rock, and so Bob's like, "Do you have a drummer?" Zeke's like, "I know somebody." They got Ryan, and so that's how it ultimately began. And so that was August of 2014. By September, they were playing what's the thing in Midtown? The festival they do, Cooper Young. So they're in the back lot of Cafe Olé. Ended up packing the place out. By the time they were done, got $400 in the tip bucket. We've got video of that whole thing. That's the first time they ever played live. January of 2015, and they're playing Neil's, and so I took a video of them doing "Give It Away Now," and I posted it, just like anybody would do, right? It took off. So the next thing we know, there's an Italian newspaper writing a story about them, calling them the baby trio from Memphis.
That's cool.
A Red Hot Chili Peppers fan club in Brazil is like blowing it up, and it starts blowing up, goes nuts. We get a phone call from America's Got Talent.
Oh.
So I got a hold of one of the contracts. not going to happen.
I mean, you basically sell all your rights.
100%.
You're signing it away immediately.
100%. And so I'm like, no, we're not doing this. I get it. You get all this exposure, whatever. We're not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And
because they own the name. I mean, you lose everything.
They own you lock, stock, and barrel.
Boom.
And endorsements, anything. So they end up getting endorsements with Ernie Ball, and so next thing you know, they're on the Ernie Ball webpage next to Paul Stanley and all, the guys in Night Ranger, and it's like nuts. I'm like, this is my kid,
Mm-hmm.
And so summer of 2015, Bob steps away, and then that's when I call Todd in because I didn't want to run it. I'll help, do whatever, but
you're there to support.
Yeah,
you are dad after all, but
right, and they don't want to hear from me. I mean, and so that's how it took off. And so then Todd started grooming them, teaching them how to write songs, and so they start recording with Jimmy, and right away, I mean, Ryan could play with a click.
Did you say Jimmy Fault?
Jimmy Fault.
Hey yo.
And so right away you start to recognize that these guys are because like there's a song called More Than You Should Know, and there's a bass line in there that Matt did, and I was like, we're driving home from recording it, and I'm like, where did you come up with that? And he goes, it just felt right, and I'm like, okay, that's legit.
There you go.
It's so that sensibility was there. You just had that thing.
Can't teach it. It's just there.
You can't. And so they got close to the record deal thing right before COVID. Lava Records was really talking to them, and they were practicing at Stinson's place on the big stage, and they had a kind of a record showcase thing there, and the rep from Lava had come, and so there's a lot going on, and then they're getting older, and so and Todd and I had talked at one point that as they were getting older, they're going to want to stretch their wings and kind of kick off the adults, and so that last EP that they did called Wrecked, that's all them. They did all that, recorded at Jimmy's, but they wrote every song, all the stuff on there, and so we all just kind of went, and then of course Ryan goes to college, and then Matt goes to college, and then Zeke left and went to college, and now of course Zeke has been touring with Adam Warner and another girl, country artist.
Yeah, he lives out in Nashville now, right?
Well, actually, he's moved back.
He has moved back.
He has moved back.
Because I know he's been doing a lot with Bob in Basket Case, and he was driving back and forth.
Yeah.
So now he's back here.
And Matt was actually filling in for Bob. So Zeke and Matt were there was a couple shows where Bob couldn't play, and so Matt filled in on bass for those shows. And so Zeke and Matt are talking. I mean, they'll be playing again.
Yeah.
Ryan, I think, is still in Murfreesboro. I don't think Ryan's,
which is a hike. It's even further out from Nashville. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that whole thing was amazing. The fact that it happened the way it did, and the experiences that they had, and the love that they got. I mean, people just and playing the Ryman when you're 15 years old.
I know.
It's unbelievable.
I know. And I've watched some of those videos too.
Yeah.
And you can see it in the audience. At that point, they weren't 12 anymore.
No, they were 15.
Right. So now they're grizzled veterans.
Yeah. Which is funny.
You could just see it in the audience. They're witnessing something special with these teenagers ripping it up.
When we were doing sound check, the sound engineer, she was like, what the, because they knew how to, they were little professionals. They knew the game, how to do it. And she was blown away. She's like, oh my God. She goes, this is amazing.
It's awesome.
And I'm like, they've been around the block a little bit. I know they're young, but they've been around the block. And then they got a standing ovation. And I had tears in my eyes. I mean,
of course.
I was off on Matt's side of the stage, obviously, because I was going to have to strike his gear really quick. And so when the crowd erupted after it only played 4 songs, but it was amazing,
Man,
that's great.
Bobby Ireland, you brought the goods today, and I know we're leaving a lot on the table.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us and doing this with us.
Thanks for having me.
Man, we need a part 2 with Bobby.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, we get those sometimes where we're just wish we had more time, but
but also it's fun to just be able to sit back and let someone tell stories.
yeah.
That's why this one's long.
People heard very little from us today, and that's a good thing.
Which is fine.
Yep.
So this one went longer. Adding the intro, this is going to be a healthy episode for everyone to digest, but worth it though. We want you to share your stories.
I appreciate it.
Again, we need to. At some point, we want to start doing reruns. Not reruns, but like bringing guests back in to tell more stories, and you have plenty to tell.
Yeah,
for sure.
I didn't get to tell my Sex Pistols story.
Oh man, there you go.
That will be on episode 2 for sure.
We're going to start a whole new series. Just topics left on the table,
right?
And have different people. Like Chris Hinkle came in, and then after the cameras are off, he continued to tell stories that I was like, man, I wish we filmed that.
Yeah.
So we'll get him in here too. But before we say goodbye, though, we got some business to take care of. Follow us at therhythmsectionpod.com, everybody. There you will see our entire catalog of episodes and links to your YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Facebook, and Instagram channels.
Thanks to our sponsors. If you're interested in becoming one, you can email us at therhythmsectionpod2022@gmail.com or reach out to us on Facebook.
And thanks to everyone that donates to our tip bucket. You can find our Venmo and Cash App links in the description, or you can just search the Rhythm Section Pod. Also, look, this is episode 99.
Yep.
Hope you enjoy episode 100 next week. And then the following week on Tuesday, July 8th, me and Jeff are just going to do our season capper, if you will, where we give thanks and just talk about how the season went. And then we'll be back fall, somewhere in September. But thanks for hanging out. Once again, Bobby Ireland. Man, what a great way. Technically, this is sort of like ending the traditional episode line of the season, our last interview, if you will, of the season. What a great way to end it. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah.
And, man, I'm glad we're getting to know you, and this is fun. Absolutely. And, Jeff, what do you say?
What am I supposed to say?
Go see a band, everybody.
Do it.
Let's go. All right, everyone. Take care.